When Canada Post went on strike, Natasha Francis couldn't get her deliveries out. So she started doing it herself. And that got her wondering, could I get paid for this?
I honestly thought let's try it, but I didn't think I would get any real hits on it. And I was really surprised that everyone is desperate, that desperate to get their stuff out.
Call her a pop-up delivery service. She doesn't know how long it will last, but right now, she's busy. Hi, I'm Paul Havershrud. Welcome to The Cost of Living. Neither rain nor snow nor gloom of night will stop the mail, but a strike will. And that spawned a new cottage industry. Gray market mail delivery. Also today, you've heard of Freedom 55. How about Freedom 45? 35, anyone? Welcome to the laid-back world of mini retirements. Up first, big tech is in another fight. This time it's over artificial intelligence and money. And Canada is in the middle of it. When you ask ChatGPT a question and the robots answer, it's not magic. The AI models learn how to talk by looking at hundreds of millions of web pages. But they don't always ask permission. Now, Canada's biggest media companies, including CBC, are suing for copyright infringement. Then there's the US and the EU. They're threatening to break up the tech giants. Ottawa scrapping with Google and Facebook. Why is all of this starting to happen now? Martin Patriquin is a reporter with The Logic, a news site that focuses on technology. Hi there.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. So, Martin, let's start with this lawsuit against OpenAI. What is the case the media companies are making?
Effectively, what the media companies are saying is that in order for OpenAI, ChatGPT, to basically train its large language model, sort of the nuts and bolts behind the chatbot, it needs a huge amount of material. And what these Canadian media companies are saying is effectively that OpenAI harvested their own content for the benefit of this, of feeding this, of their ChatGPT. Basically, that says that the ChatGPT has been doing so since about 2015 and went back that far and basically used the volume of content since then to effectively make ChatGPT smarter, more effective, what have you.
Okay, so U.S. media companies, including the New York Times, they filed a similar case last year. Why are media outlets on both sides of the border now taking up this fight?
It's a little bit. It's funny. They're late, as to be expected. Tech giants tend to move very, very quickly when they're onto something new. And this is basically a lot of media companies going, oh, wait a minute. We have a huge amount of IP here. Our IP is valuable. You could argue that it's probably the most, one of the most important things of our business model. And there is a giant company that makes a lot of money, that makes a very popular chatbot, is basically taking it and using it for free. Media companies are hurting. It's a tough time for media, just in terms of advertising and being able to monetize the content. And having a giant startup, if you can call it a startup, from the United States coming in and harvesting all that data is a bit of a kick in the teeth.
So that's what's at stake for media companies. What about OpenAI? Beyond the lawsuit and being sued, what's at stake here for a company like OpenAI?
Well, I mean, part of the thing is that, like, if you if you look at, you said in the intro there, that they basically scrape websites for content. The problem is that a lot of websites aren't particularly good. What they have, or what OpenAI has when it comes to media companies, is a lot of high quality, fact-checked content, stuff that is reliable, well written, well produced, and in all likelihood, factual. So for them to be able to avail themselves of that content is hugely valuable. If they're mandated to pay for it, it becomes a ridiculous expense. Right now, it's free. What would it be if they start getting charged? In the case of the Canadian lawsuit, it's something in the order. The lawsuit puts the cost of the content harvested by OpenAI at $322 billion, which is significantly more than the valuation of OpenAI itself.
So media companies at the very least are saying, hey, we can work out a licensing deal. Why don't you chip us off some of that money, and we can all kind of benefit from what's happening here.
Yeah.
Martin, I'm also wondering, if you step back and look at what's happening more broadly, this isn't the only fight that's going on. We've got Ottawa in this standoff with Facebook over its refusal to pay Canadian news outlets. Facebook, for its part, has basically taken its ball and gone home and said, well, we don't want to be part of this if we have to pay. If you take those along with what's happening now with OpenAI and this lawsuit, are all these things kind of a piece?
You could certainly make the argument. I mean, the Facebook situation is very, very interesting. If you remember about 4 years ago, when the government here in Canada, but elsewhere, I mean, in Australia is another notable example. When they were faced with the kind of legislation that these governments were putting forward in order, compelling them to pay for stuff, Facebook automatically, protested, but ultimately climbed down. In the case of Australia, they entered into a content paying or content sharing agreement with Australian media titles. Facebook has since completely changed, done a 180 in the sense that they are no longer interested in news. And I think that is very strategic on the part of Facebook. There is a realization on the part of the company that if they start cutting these deals with individual companies, they're going to have to do it the world over. And that's going to become very expensive. So they've sort of just given up altogether on news. It's somewhat different for Google. Google's another interesting case, and it's interesting for a different reason. Google, much like OpenAI in the case of ChatGPT, relies on quality search results. How do you get quality search results? You go through media titles, you go through media spaces. They need that, so they're more willing to enter into those content sharing deals. But the larger question of, is this part of a tech onslaught? Absolutely it is. That's the way the internet is going. That is the way our business is going. And so it's not much of a coincidence that all these things are happening at once.
So you've got governments now out there around the world trying to wrangle big tech. But big tech is kind of so far proven to be fairly wrangleless. I mean, they're borderless. They're some of the biggest, most powerful companies in the world. If you look at how they work, and of course there's Mark Zuckerberg's famous line, move fast and break things. Silicon Valley kind of moves at light speed. Then you look at government regulations, they don't really move at light speed. Are governments set up to do this wrangling that they're trying to do?
Possibly not, but it's pretty much the only way you can do things. We don't have much of a choice. You're right. I mean, the idea of moving fast and breaking stuff, apart from the obvious benefit of that, you get your products to market faster, et cetera, but you also keep your opponent. Your opponent will always be reacting as a result. And the OpenAI case is a perfect example. They've been scraping data already, and it's only now where you're starting to see lawsuits against it.
If you think about why this fight is happening now, it feels maybe a day late and a dollar short. Like, wasn't the time to take on Google and Facebook 15 years ago? Wasn't the time to come and look at what OpenAI is doing like a number of years ago, not today?
Yeah, although in the case of OpenAI, I mean, it's so fast. I mean, think about it, right? Like, I didn't know what OpenAI was like 2.5 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago. This stuff moves incredibly, incredibly quickly. So that's one thing. As far as Google and Facebook are concerned, I mean, for a long time, I think a lot of media executives, to be fair to, I can't believe I'm saying this, but to be fair to Google and Facebook, I think a lot of media executives, et cetera, once they realize, look, these companies are eating our lunch, it was better to sort of to co-op with them, like to go along with them, to rely on them for for content distribution, et cetera, et cetera. And it only became apparent when people started realizing the size of these companies and also the extent to which they were hurting bottom lines, that they actually reacted. And again, as you say, you're not dealing with a bunch of tech bros, you're dealing with government. Tech bros tend to move a hell of a lot faster than government.
Well, what about government? Have you had conversations with policymakers, with people in those circles? Like what are they saying now when they're looking at sort of getting into some of these fights?
Well, one of the things, and I've talked to a number of people about it. And one of the things, and it's going to be one of the challenges for the lawyers for the media companies in the OpenAI lawsuit, is these companies are so well resourced. They have an incredible number of resources, be it lawyers, lobbyists, what have you. I was talking to one guy who was working for on the Heritage File back in the day, I guess it would have been online streaming. This person would regularly get job opportunities from the likes of Google and Facebook, basically them trying to poach this person. And the sort of the long and the short of it was, there's one of me, there are 15 others like me working on the other side. So it just going up against that tide is extremely, extremely difficult. We think of government as this massive sort of overarching thing that is all powerful. No, the tech companies are more powerful when it comes to these types of resources.
Sounds like a tough fight to pick. Thanks, Martin.
Thank you very much.
Martin Patriquin is a reporter with The Logic. Do you have any questions about business or economics? If you do, please send them our way and we'll do our best to answer them on an upcoming show. In the past, we've tackled everything from, is dry cleaning really worth the money? To, why do we care about GDP? So if you have a question, give us a call. Our number is 1-866-550-COST. That's 1-866-550-2678. Or email costofliving@cbc.ca. On your radio and by podcast, this is The Cost of Living. I'm Paul Haberstrood. The Canada Post strike, for some, is super inconvenient, holding up everything from paychecks to grandma's birthday card. Well, some people may barely notice. Hey, there's always UPS. But for others, the mail strike is something else. Opportunity? Knocking.
Natasha Francis owns an online store in Hamilton that specializes in modest clothing, like long-sleeve shirts and hijabs. But when Canada Post went on strike, her shipping costs skyrocketed. To save money, she started delivering local orders herself. Then she thought,
maybe I could capitalize on this and, deliver other people's stuff as well.
She posted an ad on Facebook Marketplace and Kijiji, and her expectations were low.
I honestly thought, let's try it, but I didn't think I would get any real hits on it. And I was really surprised that everyone is desperate to get their stuff out.
In Kingston, Cameron Hurto had the same idea. Deliver the mail and make some extra cash.
Odessa, I've been to Belleville, I've been to Yarker.
And he's put a lot of clicks on his truck.
Brockville.
Cameron describes himself as a burly private citizen delivering everything from prescriptions to paychecks. And it's proving to be pretty lucrative.
I've probably helped 50 to 60 people, and I think I've probably made about $2,500. Like, it's nuts.
Guy Hoburn is a professor of business, economics, and public policy at Western University. He says the strike has made it very clear. People still use Canada Post.
I think this shows that this is really an essential service that we have. Even though we live in an electronic age, we're still very reliant on physical delivery of letters, packages.
Canada Post has the monopoly on letter mail, and it's easy to forget just how much still gets delivered this way until, Guy says, it stops showing up.
Kids will want to be writing to Santa this Christmas. And of course, many people receive their bills by mail. Some people receive their checks and their pay by mail as well. So I think this is making it very clear we're still very reliant on regular post as part of our normal everyday lives.
According to Payments Canada, 18% of small and medium-sized companies still pay their staff by check. And a lot of those checks come in the mail. Guy Hoburn says the strike is also a reminder that Canada Post boldly goes where no one else will.
So private operators may only deliver to certain parts of the country. They may not get into the far rural regions. So that's the social element, and that's the social mandate, which is to make sure that there is delivery to all parts of Canada.
At an affordable price. Sending a Christmas card to your neighbor costs the same as mailing it from Tofino to Truro, Nova Scotia. $1.15. But it may cost you more than that to get your cards delivered this season. Natasha Francis charges $2 per kilometer.
And it starts from when I leave my house. So however far they are, if they want to pay, then they can pay.
On the other hand, Cameron Hurto says he just charges what feels right. Unless you want something really special.
This one lady asked me if I could go to a school dressed as Santa, and I was like, well, that's a bit much. Like, I wasn't looking to be, Tim Allen or anything. But I could probably swing that.
For an extra $10. For the cost of living, I'm Danielle Nerman.
Ellis, it's like we're in a mindfulness app up in here.
Yeah, but this is kind of what it sounds like every day where Nick and Melanie Thompson live.
So we're in one of three valleys called the Valleys of Longevity.
I'm sorry, he's in the Valley of Longevity?
In the Valley of Longevity, that's what it's called. They live in southern Ecuador in the Andes Mountains. Nick and Melanie moved there with their 4 kids from Ontario a little over a year ago.
It's the land of eternal spring, so it never gets below 16. It never gets over 27. It hardly rains. It's sunny every day. There's no bugs, so it's kind of like this really cool Goldilocks zone.
Well, this sounds lovely.
Yeah, I know, right? They live in this 700 square foot adobe house in the country with mango, avocado, banana trees. And the kids go swimming in the river nearby.
It is mountain spring, so it's a little chilly. And then there's these giant rocks there that heat up in the sun. So then you see them all just basking in the sun on the rocks.
They're like seals.
They just kind of melt there.
So what are they doing with their kids melting their little seals?
Well, they're taking a year-long break from work. They're part of a trend that's growing, micro-retirements.
And this is like probably what it sounds like, a little retirement?
Yeah. And Nick figures, life is short. You only live once. And that hits home for Nick. He watched his parents save and plan for retirement. Then his mom passed away before they got a chance to enjoy it.
So that would really instill in me, it's like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not waiting till I'm 65 and can't hike a mountain to go travel the world and see things in a walker, right? It's like, I'm going to do this now when I'm fit and when I'm able to, right? And when I know I can do it, right? Not pushing things off. Like, let's do it now, right?
So instead of retiring for good at the end of his career, he's making stops along the way. And some people call it a sabbatical or an adult gap year.
And you said more people are doing this.
They are. I talked to some HR experts who say more employees are asking for more time off. Sabbaticals have always been a part of academia, but they're part of the corporate world too. Companies like Shopify, Deloitte, McDonald's, they all offer some kind of sabbatical program.
And is this coming from employees? Like, are they agitating for more work-life balance?
Well, you know, Gen Zs and millennials, they're all about that. Like Nick and Melanie Thompson, they're in their late 30s. This is their third micro-retirement. And they're not alone. The pandemic made a lot of people rethink their relationship with work.
A lot of people started questioning, is this all of my identity? Is this all of my value? Is this my entire purpose in life? Is this job? Or are there other things that actually really matter to me that perhaps need some time and energy as well?
Jillian Johnsrud is a mini retirement veteran. She and her family have taken a dozen of them over the years.
She's retired 12 times.
Yes. She just finished her last one in the spring. She does all sorts of things during these mini retirements. She's done road trips. She's decluttered her home.
One summer, I built a food forest in my backyard. It took 3 months. Some people join a band or, learn a new language or take classes.
Jillian's turned micro-retirement into a career. She hosts a podcast called Retire Often. Her tagline is, "Why retire once when you can retire often?" And she coaches other people how to do it.
Okay, then, well, how do you do this? Like, how do you afford to do something like this?
Well, I spoke to some financial planners, and they all told me the same thing. It depends. It depends on your cash flow, your investments, your savings. It takes a lot of planning. Jillian has a formula. She says if you can put aside 6.5% of every paycheck for 2 years, it'll buy you 1 month off.
Well, 6.5%, like, that would squeeze you, but it also, sounds somewhat doable.
Yeah, but it might mean making choices. Like for the people she coaches, it might mean choosing a mini retirement over buying a nicer car or going out to dinner.
Maybe they're not eating out at Chipotle, but in 2 years, they're going down to Mexico and they're going to be eating street tacos. It's kind of delayed gratification, but not delayed for 40 years. We're going to postpone a few little things now to have a really incredible experience.
And it also depends on what kind of break you plan on taking. Like, are you going to rent a villa in France for a year or go somewhere where the loonie goes further? Like Nick and Melanie. They chose Ecuador because it's way cheaper to live there. Like about a third of what it costs in Canada.
Okay, so there are ways to figure the money part of this out, maybe if you plan for it. But what about your job? Like if someone's listening and they're thinking, yeah, I kind of like the sounds of this. If someone takes a break, can that hurt your career?
It is something to think about. I spoke to Philip de Villers. He's the head of CPHR, an organization that represents thousands of HR professionals. He says it could be tricky if you're just starting out and you're keen on moving up the ladder. Like if there are a bunch of you who all started around the same time and you're the one who takes 6 months off.
You basically lost those 6 months. Now, it doesn't mean that down the road, 30 years later, is it really showing? No, but maybe your colleague will have the promotion before you, because basically, if you're not there, people are going to just forget about you. And so you're losing some opportunities.
And if you're with a smaller company, let's say you are the entire IT department, taking a gap year might not go over very well.
Well, yeah, because you know what? Somebody's got to tell you to turn the computer on and off to fix it. Kidding, IT folks. But yeah, this can come with risks for different jobs. But if you have the type of job or employment where it's not as much of a worry, like you're a contractor, then maybe this starts to feel more possible. The other question, though, Ellis, that I have that comes to mind, though, is what about your real retirement? Like if you're spending this money along the way to take these little breaks, are you still able to save for when you're old?
Well, yeah, you have to figure that out too. You have to save more for your mini and for the real final one. And you may have to work longer. But maybe you're okay working past 65 because you've taken these breaks along the way. And if you do this, Jillian says you can look back
and say, I did 10 incredible experiences. I did all these things in my 20s and my 30s and 40s and 50s and with my kids and with my grandkids and with my friends. And I don't feel like at 65, I have to make up for all this lost time.
That's how Nick and Melanie see it. They're not interested in climbing the corporate ladder. They have a formula. Work 3 years, take 1 year off. Nick just changes jobs. He's worked as an engineer. He's run a vineyard. He's invested in real estate. Right now, Nick and Melanie just want to spend time with their kids.
And they're happy?
Yeah, it's already been more than a year in the Valley of Longevity.
I think we're going to be here for a little longer.
Yeah, we are living our best life now. And so for the foreseeable future, I'd like to continue that.
Feels like this micro retirement could, turn into a macro retirement.
I know, for now. But what do you think?
Like, would I do this?
Yeah.
I never really thought about it. I just thought you just kind of like work, and then, that's it for life. But, well, Ellis, they say, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
Oh, brother Paul.
Thanks, Ellis.
You're welcome.
Coming up next week, TD Bank just got hit with the biggest fine ever for money laundering in the U.S. $3 billion.
Everybody's been talking about banks and financial institutions and money laundering for, 30, 40 years. Regulations have gotten tighter and tighter. And then we still have this, this degree of complicity, right? This degree of a lack of an effective anti-money laundering program is still happening. Stunning.
How does money laundering, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, happen at a blue blood Canadian bank? One duffel bag full of cash at a time, apparently. That's next week. The Cost of Living is based in Calgary. The show is produced by Daniel Nerman, Ellis Cho, and Jennifer Keane, with help from Jeff Kynock. I'm Paul Havertrud. Thanks for listening.